Here's Brody Brazil.
This is going to be a quick look at my first impressions of the San Jose Sharks here in 2023-24. At the time I'm recording this, they've played 6 games, and they've yet to win any. In fact, they're the NHL's only remaining winless team. And I need to establish that on 2 fronts. First off, as you can imagine, much of what I'm going to bring up here and discuss is not in the most positive fashion, but on the flip side of that, here's the other point, things don't always have to be that way this season. They're getting off to a brutal schedule start. You look at the opponents they're playing, in the order they're playing them. Yeah, I understand the Sharks are not necessarily going to be favorites on a lot of nights this season in terms of the odds, but the schedule is especially difficult and stacked here at the beginning. So how they're coming out of the gate does not necessarily have to be reflective of where they're at a couple weeks from now, a couple months from now. I truly feel like we will look back no matter what and understand that getting established this season could be one of their most difficult points. Okay, with that, 5 main things to point out here, 5 themes of my first impressions, and I'll kind of go through them here quickly, and then I'll get to each one in detail. This team should have one goal, and it's to get more than one goal. In 5 of their first 6 games, they've only recorded a single goal in each contest. They simply need more offense. They need more scoring. They need more scoring chances. They need more puck possession. It starts at a lot of root layers. It's not just the end result of scoring, but we'll talk about that. The offense and the lack of offense is probably, well, it is the number one thing I'm mentioning here, probably the number one factor for the team. Mackenzie, Blackwood, their new goaltender for this season in terms of a tandem with Kaapo Kähkönen, but Blackwood has really stood out. He's broken out. We'll talk about his early success. Healthy scratching. I don't mean like that. Ooh, that's good ASMR content right there. The scratching of healthy players has already happened on a couple occasions this season. David Quinn has not really hesitated. He's already gone there. And we're on the first road trip of the season. Usually that's a later season reservation. So we'll talk about that. Is there more of it to come? Is that just the way things are going to go this year? And how often can David Quinn do that effectively? The special teams struggle. Sharks penalty kill has been consistently one of the better units in the NHL across the last couple of years. And even though their team and result struggles have come, their penalty kill has been great. But so far this season, it has not necessarily been in that same category. The power play is also struggling, so more on that. And then partial versus full 60s, and this is one of the better compliments I can give the Sharks. First couple games, puck possession, getting outplayed, it was very evident, but they have worked on a lot of things, and I do want to point out that they've not gotten dominated all 60 minutes of every game. In fact, there have been a lot of games where they win this period, and they win that period, but man, they lost the middle period decisively, and that's what cost them the game. So there are these bright spots and sequences, but up to this point, I mean, I don't know that the full 60 has been there. Maybe a couple occasions like the shootout loss to Colorado. But then again, part of that was just how well Mackenzie Blackwood played. 51 saves. They score 6 on 5 with 90 seconds left. The Avs do. So probably the closest they've come to a full 60, but again, scoring in that game, you put up 1 against the Avs, that's not going to cut it against them or most teams in this league. So let's get into each of these in a little bit more detail. The 1 goal thing, 1 goal scored in 5 of 6 games. The Sharks have scored 8 total goals in their first 6 games, and 3 of those have come on the power play. So even strength scoring has to improve. 6 different goal scorers. I think Tomas Hertl is the leader, by the way, in helpers. He's got 4 assists. But it all comes down to quality and quantity of shots. And at this point, I'll just take both. Like, I'll start with the quantity and hope that it turns into quality. The Sharks are getting outshot on average 38-24 in every single game. And the 24, honestly, there's a lot of games where they're in the teens by the end of the night in terms of the shot clock. And shots aren't everything. Chances are everything. I really wish the NHL would evolve in that category of giving us shots. That's a fine stat to keep, but also give us grade A scoring chances. Maybe shots in the scoring area, kind of the home plate, drawn-out area from the crease to the 2 face-off dots and up in the slot, or a one-timer. Anyway, but they're getting outchanced too, obviously, but outshot by a healthy margin every game. And you do the math, they're scoring 1.33 goals a game. So look, I could sit here and tell you, here's how you do it. Here's how you score more goals. If I knew that, I would pass along that information. So would you. This is a complicated problem. Maybe it's part strategy. Maybe it's part game execution. Maybe the Sharks just don't have as many goal scorers as they need on this roster. Maybe that's a realization to be had here. So how can they do it? I don't know, but it's very clear that the lack of offense, even strength, like let's start there. We'll eventually get to the power play in a second, but it has to start at even strength. You've got to be dangerous at even strength so that you even get opportunities on the power play. You want to draw that interference. You want to draw that hooking, that tripping, all that stuff. So you can get power play opportunities, but if you're not dangerous with the puck and you're not scoring, you're not going to draw those penalties and get on the power play. Mackenzie Blackwood was traded for by the Sharks in the summertime. I guess technically right before the before the free agent window opened, and then he actually didn't sign before that, so technically signed as a free agent if you see that somewhere, but they traded for him, who was originally a second-round 42nd overall pick by the Devils back in 2015. So, again, highly regarded, highly touted, and it's been a handful of years, but I wonder if this change of scenery and this new opportunity is kind of showcasing him. I truly think, despite the 0-3-1 record, despite the 3-4-7 goals against, which, by the way, that is always a team stat. Goals against, and even save percentage, but goals against are pinned on a goalie. It's not like baseball where there's an earned run average. Like unearned runs, when somebody else makes a mistake behind you, that doesn't count towards your ERA. In hockey, the goals against, if they're good goals, bad goals, if it's a 2-on-1, a 1-on-none rush, power play opportunities, they all, or your PK, the other team's power play, they all count against you. And so in the case of Mackenzie Blackwood, 3-4-7 reflects the team's play as far as I'm concerned. And the 914 save percentage, there's not a lot wrong with that. In fact, when you look at the volume of shots that he's faced, 914 is actually pretty impressive. Blackwood is the only Sharks goalie between he and Kähkönen to have back-to-back starting opportunities so far this season, and that's happened twice. Kähkönen got the opening night assignment. Mackenzie Blackwood in his first game made those 51 saves against the Avs, got the call the next time. Lost was to the Carolina, in the Carolina game, 36 stops. They scored a bunch late. Most of them on the power play, one shorthanded breakaway. Anyway, 51, 36, 29, and 33 saves. He's been tested quite a bit. In fact, you look at those shot totals, and those are save totals, I should say. The Sharks don't even get that many shots in most games. And also, I think you could crunch the numbers here all you want, but if you look at the goals scored against Mackenzie Blackwood this year, there's not a lot of soft ones. Maybe those two in that Carolina game, like back-to-back, 15 seconds apart, he probably wants one or two of those back. Other than that, almost every other goal has been scored on the Sharks' PK or in an odd man rush situation. And for me, you look at these games where the Sharks have been close and they've been making strides, and they have not been scoring. They have not been giving Mackenzie Blackwood any type of goal support to try and win games. But he is keeping them in games. He is keeping the Sharks loitering in a lot of games so far. I don't want to say that they didn't have any business in, but he's making it interesting in some games that could have got out of hand if he didn't make some amazing saves. So I really like what we've seen from Blackwood, and I don't even know if we've seen the best yet. I think that's kind of the exciting part about Mackenzie Blackwood. Okay, David Quinn already scratched Kevin Labanc for the first 3 games of this season. Labanc came back in Game 4, and especially, I think, Game 5, the first road game, and looked a lot better. Takeaways, puck possession, chances all over the puck. I hate that it's that way, but sometimes a situation like this for a young player, a veteran player, it puts a chip on your shoulder. And I don't know how long you get the response. Does it last weeks and months? Will him missing the first 3 games, will he have any effect, positive effect from that in November or December? I don't know. But it definitely should, and in this case did, jumpstart Kevin Labanc. So he missed the first 3 games as a healthy scratch. Vlasic has already gone through a lower body injury this season. He came back, played 6 minutes a couple games ago, and then last game was a scratch. Again, I'm recording this before Game 7 of the season. We'll see if he's back in there tonight. If that was a one-game thing, is that a multi-game thing? I can't recall in all my time, the last 15 years of covering the Sharks, or even watching them before that. I mean, Vlasic's been around almost 20 years, but I can't recall him being a healthy scratch, if ever. And so this is a bit uncharted territory. How will Vlasic respond? And there's really only two ways. Will there be a noticeable response? Will there be any response? Vlasic's also a kind of guy that has been through so much and been around so long that maybe you try and pull strings. Maybe this string just doesn't pull for him. We'll find out. We'll see how this goes. But I think the bigger point, it's not really as much as the player response, is that the Sharks are about 2 weeks into the season and are healthy scratching people. Thomas Bordeleau missed a game the other night, and I'm pretty sure it was not health related because he was back in there for Game 6. I think he missed the first road game. So these are all very early tones to be set by David Quinn. Does this continue? And how long can he use that effectively? Because I truly feel like scratching players is a last resort. It's not something he wants to do. He's had the conversations. Apparently those did not work. And so this is the only last option he has to try and get a different result. And I just think as you look at that, it probably can't logistically go on all season. Obviously, you don't want it to, but I don't know that that's a tool you can keep pulling out of your bag all season long. The special teams struggle. Okay, let's talk about the power play first. They've scored 3 goals. They're clicking at 15%, and they're ranked 19th in the NHL. The penalty kills at 73%. They're 23rd in the NHL. Last year, they were top 3 for a bit. They were top 5. I think they ended up sliding a little bit in the last couple weeks, and they ended up 8th. But again, a top 10 PK in the league. Obviously, most teams would take that. Right now, they're not adding up to that 100% math of, can I do this here? Yeah, there we go. 15 plus 73 does not equal 100. In fact, it's well short of 100. Ooh, is it 12? Minus 12? Is that where we're at? Or 11? Anyway. The point being is that you want to try and get your power play and your penalty kill to add up to 100%. That's pretty good just in terms of a benchmark. And the biggest difference is that, the power play has struggled out of the gate. And we'll talk about why they're maybe struggling in a second, but their penalty kill has been so good for the last couple years. It has kept them in games. It has made them competitive. Sharks had 16 overtime losses last year, and you can see that one of two ways. Well, if you score a couple more goals, you win those games. But also, if your penalty kill wasn't so good, maybe you weren't even in those games to get points and take it to overtime. So their penalty kill has been a strong unit, but so far, that could be trouble. If their PK cannot be reliable this year and can't get closer to 80%, and believe it or not, every percent is a huge difference over the course of a season. If they can't hover more close to 80%, that's going to be a big deal. On the power play, and you remember that they started their power play this year with 5 forwards. That's something else I've never seen the Sharks do in my 15 years. I've seen other teams do it, and maybe I've seen the Sharks try it at times. I remember even going to 4 forwards and using like Pavelski and Burns up on the points. Or was it somebody else? I'm trying to think. But that's obviously quite common too. And 5 forwards is not unheard of, but the Sharks have never really done it. And in this situation, I think we're just really looking at maybe less effective point play on the power play. And your 1 or 2 D-men or the 2 D in those positions, maybe not moving the puck as much, not knowing when to jump in the play, being a little bit more aggressive, maybe the pinches. So I think the point positions on the power play, to me, are what's noticeable, as well as this. The power play chances, the opportunities, and I should have referenced this before when we talked about the 1-goal thing. There have been so many times this year where it's a one-and-done situation in the offensive zone. And the power play is very much in line with that. 1 scoring opportunity, no rebound chance, no second chance, no third opportunity, no retrieval of the puck, cycle it around, try it again. It just seems like the power play and even strength, there are a lot of one-and-done chances. And then last but not least here, just getting on the power play more. If you're going to get 1 or 2 opportunities per game, that's probably not going to garner the power play goals that you want. I think in this league, you got to be aiming for 4 chances a night on the power play, 3, 4. Obviously, you'll take 5 or 6, but that's a pretty whistle-heavy game at that point. But you have to do more to draw these penalties. They're not just going to come to you. You have to do more. And so the final point here is just the difference between the partial games we've seen from the Sharks versus the full 60s they're aiming for. They have won periods. Like, there's no question. They've played 20 at a time, and they go into the room and you think, well, they were the better team. They had the better first period. They had the better second period. And whether it's outscoring the opponent or not, like, that's preferable, but they have won periods. Let's be very clear about that. If you added up the periods, how many they've won and been the better team versus it's a toss-up versus they've been the worst team, yeah, the averages probably don't add up in their favor. But they have won entire periods. Problem is they haven't won back-to-back periods a lot of times, like really good first. The second is where it gets away, and then they rebound for the third. Back-to-back periods, really 3 in a row, is what you need. And even when I said before that they've won periods, it just has not always been reflected. Play well, but each team gets a goal. Well, that didn't help you. Play well, but get outscored 2-1. That's even worse. We've seen a lot of that this season. And the Sharks really haven't been in the driver's seat of a lot of games yet. Really any game. They've been up a couple goals. They've been up a goal. But I think, learning how to get up and manage a goal lead or even a multi-goal lead is going to be huge for them. I wish it was a multi-goal lead because, like I said, at this point, most games they've only scored a single goal. Better puck possession. And they have got better at this. The first game or two, especially against Las Vegas in the opener, it was kind of like the Golden Knights were on a quasi-power play most of the night. In their offensive zone, if there was a time of puck possession like there's a time of possession in football, it would have been very one-sided that night. And I'll say it before, but you need quantity of shots, you need quality of chances, you need second chances, you need rebounds. You just got to be dangerous. Scoring right now has to come at a premium for this team. And I realize sometimes that's associated with cheating on the defensive side. Kind of can't do that either, but they've got to find a way to manufacture more goals and get more consistent efforts. Again, I'll take back the Colorado game and say that was close to a 60-minute effort, but Blackwood was also standing on his head that game. So I want to see a team game, team effort for 60, and hopefully that resonates. Okay, that was a little bit more of an extended look. My gosh, I went longer than I thought, but I'm passionate. I love this stuff. Hopefully you do too. And yeah, hopefully some of these things that we pointed out here get resolved. But those are my first impressions of the Sharks. You made it here to the end. I appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel so I can definitely see you back here next time.